Well, hello everybody and welcome. Welcome to my pity party. Now, we all have had these parties before. You know what they're like. They're the ones where your friend gets your promotion instead of you. They're the ones where the person you desperately wanted to call just won't call you back. They're the ones where everybody on social media seems to be doing so much better than you are. And do we use that time sensibly? Do we think to ourselves, you know what? I'm so pleased to see that wonderful things are happening to other people that I'm going to use that energy and springboard it onto something else that invests in myself? No. We use other forms of soothing, forms which don't actually serve us well in the long run. So in this little session, I am going to show you ways to clean up that hot emotional mess that you are and stress bust in the 21st century. So let's talk a little bit about resilience. And research from resilience is about how we overcome adversity. And we overcome adversity by two really key things. One, having coping strategies, knowing that even if we don't have all the answers right now, we know where to find them. And two, having a network around us that we can trust in, that support us, that we can believe in and that we can reach out to, and they will be there reaching right back. But not all of us have that at the moment of crisis. And it's at the moment of crisis when we need it most. But the good news is, when it comes to building resilience, when it comes to busting stress, it's very possible to learn the tools beforehand, but it's not easy. It takes active, conscious thought. And all the way through, our mind is going to be working against us. So here's my first example of how our mind does that. I'd like you all to say this word out loud. Just say it or hear it in your head. And now answer me, what does a cow drink? Water is the answer. Water, not milk. But if any of you thought milk, if any of you felt the word milk appearing, that is an example of how our unconscious thinking, if we don't tap into it, if we're not aware of it, can actually affect us in everyday life. Research has suggested we have over 50,000 thoughts a day. 20% of those thoughts are likely to be, well, actually, if a cow did drink milk, things like that, but 80% can be negative. And when we get overwhelmed by this negative thinking, that's when we start having our own pity parties in our own heads. And that leads us down a very dark emotional and mental spiral, which we really need to get out of. And so what I wanted to do was to give you some of the practical tools I use in my classes, I use myself, and I know have shown great successes just in creating a little bit of a buffer to the everyday stresses that come along. Now, as with all learning, you don't have to do these things. If they work for you, great. If they don't worry about it. Learning, professional development, personal development, it's like a pick and mix. Do what works for you. And if something doesn't work now, don't worry. You might find it works at a later point. So let's look at some of these pity party banners. The first, feeling overwhelmed. I can't focus on what I want to focus on because there's just so many other things going on. Well, try this exercise. And this comes from using the well-being wheel in coaching. And you can either use it to look at how you can live your best life, or you can use it, as I use it with my students, to simply get through an essay, get through their dissertation. I'd like you to draw a circle and divide it into 8 segments. Now, in each of those segments, I want you to write down the things for you that are going to make your life great. Now, as I said, I use this with my students as well. So for them, I might say, you've got an essay to write. what things do you need to complete to get that essay done? And it might be reading, it might be doing the research itself, it might be doing the transcribing, whatever it is. But for you, I want you to think. And a lot of people, certainly on the well-being wheel, they tend to say things like family. That's really important. They also say things like career, finances. You put down whatever is important to you. And going from our last speaker, whatever makes you passionate, because that energy is so important. So what is going to make you feel like you're living your best life? Write those things down. And then this is the work. On a scale of 0 in the middle to 10 on the outside, I want you to mark on each segment where you are right now. Because these are the things that you want to be involved in and you want to prioritize in order to make yourself feel great. At least work out where you are on each of them. Now, family, we've been in lockdown. Maybe we've had bonding time. Maybe we've had time to really spend together. Great, lovely. Maybe that's at an 8 or a 9. Wonderful. Career, maybe actually you're quite happy, but there's that job you want to go for. Or maybe you want to break out on your own. That's okay too. So maybe you're a 5 or 6. Finances. Maybe they've taken a bit of a nosedive. So maybe they're around 2 or 3. It doesn't matter where you are. The point of this exercise is to give you a visual representation. So it means that when you do free up a little bit of space in your calendar, when you do have the choice of engaging in a pity party or doing something productive, you know exactly what to focus on. And when you focus on any of those segments, it's not about moving your finances up from a 2 to a 10. It's about what little thing can I do that makes my finances move up from a 2 to a 3. For example, you might wish to save. You might wish to stop a subscription that you no longer need. So that is how you use the wheel. And the special thing about this is the visual representation, and it gives you a focus, and it allows you to know all of the things that you want to do in order to live your best life. And I would suggest revisiting this wheel probably every 3 months or so, because that way you know if your priorities have changed, and it's absolutely okay if they have. But it's a really nice tool to know what you want to do and where you're actually at when you're doing it. Tool number 2. Another problem we tend to have is, great, I've done that, or I would love to do all of this personal development, but I just have no time to do it. Well, here's another tool you can use. And this one I use in group sessions when we used to be able to do face-to-face teaching, and I used to use it with Post-it notes. But you can simply use it with little Post-it notes on a piece of paper, write it out, or whiteboard. Now, draw a quadrant. This is how we're going to start finding our priorities. And in one quadrant, you might know this one. One quadrant, you write down the things that are urgent and important that you have to do, and you have to do it pretty quickly. Everything that you have to do. And anything in that quadrant, get it done. Do it. Do it. Then the other quadrants are a little bit more interesting. In this one, I want you to write down everything that's urgent, but it's not important that you do it. So urgent, but not important for you to do it. And the things in here might be emptying the dishwasher. It might be collecting the children from school. It might be walking the dog. It's important. Those things have to be done, and there is a time dependency on them. Do you have to do it? Not all the time. If that's the case, delegate. And the beauty about delegation is that you're showing other people, you know what, I trust you to do this. I know you will do this. And once you've learned to delegate, it frees your time up to continue with the things that you actually have to do. Or if you suddenly find some time free, remember your wheel, remember your segments, start working on one of those and begin to grow a bit more. Next one, What if something is important that you do it, but actually not all that urgent? So I'm talking about things like maybe seeing your friends for a drink or a coffee. It's really important you do it, but if they're not moving to the other side of the world tomorrow, then maybe it's not so urgent. Well, all you need to do with those is delay them. Delay them. And most people come across this quadrant without really thinking about what do we do. You sort of think, well, I've prioritized, but I don't really know what to do with it. Well, do urgent, important, delegate urgent, not important, delay important, not urgent. And of course, if it's not urgent and not important, like doom scrolling or going through social media mindlessly, delete. And that can be things like deleting apps. That can be things like, for example, what I do is anytime I catch myself doom scrolling, I have a book on my Kindle that I always come back to, and I just consciously think I'm going to do that instead. So delete the things that are taking up your time unnecessarily. So that's our other concern. So that's time. But it's not just time that steals away our energy. Unfortunately, it's people too. There are people in our lives who are what I call, and many others call, emotional vampires. They are the people where they walk into the room and they suck the energy out of that room. And you might have been feeling great before you saw them, but then after an hour or so, you're just, oh my goodness. And they can also be the people where you're even dreading them ringing. You see their name flash up and you go, oh no, it's them, I don't want to, and you turn the phone upside down so you don't even need to look at it. Now, a lot of people will say to you, well, just dump them, delete them, put them in the delete pile. It's not as easy as that, is it? We know it's really quite difficult to say no, especially when you don't really have a good enough reason. So try this. I'd like you now to draw some cups. They don't have to be cups, they can be hearts, they can be whatever you like. You're just going to write in the space. Now, the reason I like to think about cups is because I like to think about sharing a lovely warm drink with people. And sharing a warm drink, it's savoring, it's friendly, it takes time, takes a bit of effort. So that's why I like to use that particular metaphor, but you can use hearts or circles or squares. I want you to think about all of the people, and you may only have 3 or 4, that you would like to share that cup of tea with, and write their names down. You're not going to show it to them. It's fine. So write their names down, but this is the more important thing. As you're thinking about them, I want you to write down their key qualities. What is it you like about them? What is it that makes you want to spend time with them? Maybe one of them is so kind, or maybe they've got a good sense of humor, or maybe they are really friendly. Maybe another one is loyal. Maybe another one is really funny. Whatever those values are, the things that you recognize that you value in those that you want to spend your time and your energy with, then you need to do 3 things. The first is tell them. Tell them. We can know ourselves how much our friends mean to us, but they don't know until we say so. And what I tend to do in my classes is I say to them, drop them a text right now and tell those people how lucky you feel to have them in your life. Tell them why they mean so much to you. It's the same example as the letter of gratitude that Martin Seligman suggests. And the sad part is, I also have to use the proviso and tell them that the trainer said to do it, so you don't get a text back saying, well, are you drunk then? Because why should we only be drunk before we tell people how much they mean to us? Why can't we be the sort of person that just goes, hey, you know what, you're awesome, you are. Because I know that when I've started doing this, I get the same back. And it's amazing. It's lovely. It makes me feel great. And I hope it makes them feel great. So that's the first thing. Tell them. The second thing, be those characteristics. Be those things. Because we might look at those traits and think, oh, I love those in my life. But if we're not like that, if we think we're completely opposite and we're actually draining them of their loyalty and humor and friendliness and kindness, how do you think we rate on the emotional vampire scale? Be those things. And if you can't be them yet, you could either try the act as if, in other words, how might my friend John respond to this and behave in that way? Or you might even ask them, how did you learn to do that? How did you become good at that? Or just study them. Or just think, well, maybe that's not the trait I'm going to work at just now. But work to be the things that you want to see more of in your life, and you will bring those things into you. The third thing, actively choose to spend more time with these people. You have already identified that they mean so much to you. You've already identified that they are important in your life. Actively seek them out. Drop in for a coffee if your society allows you to do that right now. Give them a call. Drop them a text. And that way, if you are actively spending more time with these people, when the emotional vampires come knocking at your door, you can quite legitimately say, I'm really sorry, I'm really busy, I'm already seeing so-and-so. Or alternatively, if you have actively spent more time with these people, you will feel more energized. So the time you spend with the ones who are slightly more exhausting, it feels a bit better. So try this. I really, really like this one. And I have to say, it has changed my friendship group, but I feel so much better for it. So give it a go, see if it works for you. Now, here are a few others. Let's have a look at, okay, we're sticking with friends. I give and I give and I give, and everyone is so ungrateful. Well, the first question is, are you giving to the right people? Are you giving to these people who you've just identified as the ones who appreciate you? Or are you giving to others who maybe don't recognize how great you are? Or are you bad at recognizing when somebody has appreciated you? Sometimes when people thank us, we do things like say, oh, no, don't be silly. It was the whole team. It wasn't me. I did nothing. If that sounds like you, it might be that you're not seeing the appreciation. So here are a couple of tips for you. The first is to recognize that people don't have to give thanks. It takes effort. It takes the same amount of effort to give thanks, actually, as it does to make a complaint. And we know people make time to do those. So even if when somebody gives you a compliment, you feel like saying, oh, no, it wasn't me, recognize the effort, not necessarily for you at first, but for them, and accept it graciously. Because otherwise, it's like someone going out, finding you a gift, wrapping it up, presenting it to you, and you going, no, it was the team, it was everybody else. Receive the thanks for them as much as for you. And all you need to do is say, oh, it was my pleasure, or you're welcome, or thank you for recognizing that. You can then thank your team as well, of course, but this way you're holding it for you. And a little secret tip, one thing I do is tell people to take screenshots of the thank yous that clients give or that students give, because again, people don't have to take the time to do that. And when you're feeling down, before you go down that spiral to the pity party, look at those and remind yourself you made a difference to someone. Then there's another tip. This one. The feeling is I'm so anxious. I'm so envious. It's scary. because everybody else seems to be doing so much better and so much more than me. I've done my wheel, I've done my prioritizing, and still everybody on social media seems to be doing better. Well, first of all, social media is somebody else's highlights reel. So don't get confused with you living your life 24/7 and someone else's highlights, because if you have thought about what to post, so have they. But here is one exercise that you can do, which is adapted from Seligman's positive psychology, and it's how to be a little bit more optimistic. It's the ABCDE exercise, which I just find so, so helpful. And I think he talks about it in his book, Flourish and the Optimistic Child. This is what I want you to do. And this is a way of rebalancing what I like to call emotional tilt. That feeling where you're off balance because something's happened. Either it's really great or it's really awful, and either way, it clouds your decision making. So the A stands for recognize the activating event. Recognize what actually caused that feeling, that emotion in the first place. What was the activating event? And you might have certain things that always come under that activating event. It might always be, if I see that person, I'm in a bad mood. Or if I have to do that particular task, I get in a bad mood. Or if I win at something, I'm suddenly in a brilliant mood. And then I say yes to everything and then regret it later on. So be aware of what tilts your emotional balance. The phrase tilt has come from poker playing. And it's used when poker players either have a series of bad losses, and what that results in is them throwing more and more money away, or they have a lot of wins and then they suddenly play a little bit recklessly. It's tilted their balance. So what's the activating event? Look at your behavior. What has happened after that activating event? What do you then do? Do you behave in a healthy manner, or do you behave in a slightly strange manner, which could then have consequences? Now, this is where I've tweaked the ABCDE sequence. And after you've identified what triggers you, what behavior you then engage in, and what the consequences are, the next task is to do something different. Do anything different. It might be to just not do anything at all. It might be to go blah, 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 just because it's something else that people weren't expecting. It probably won't be that, but do something different. Now, most of you, and we discussed this in the earlier segment that Lucy was leading about how we can actually get motivated. We will then go, yeah, it's great. I love this idea. This is brilliant. I will do this. And you might be thinking about some of the other tools I've given you, thinking, yeah, absolutely fantastic. And then very much like that plan to go for the run at 6 o'clock in the morning, you might do it for 2 days and then go, oh, can't be bothered. And we're back to having a pity party instead. So E, energizes. Energizes. And these are little things that you do every single day to boost your energy. They're little things that make you smile. And yes, they can come under the five pillars of positive psychology, PERMA. Positive emotion. Build up a positivity reservoir. Take photographs of memories and emotions and things that feel great to you. E is find engagement. When you're engaged in something, recognize it. Recognize, you know what, I really like this. And then if you're feeling a bit down, try and engage in that again. R, healthy relationships. M, find meaning. A, achievements. Celebrate the little wins. If you look at all of these things and all you can do this week is just simply show up to a conference, or simply do one of these exercises whilst I'm talking, you know what, that's a win. Well done. That's really great. So recognize that, put that in your positivity reservoir. So that's another way of managing emotional tilt. The last thing I wanted to talk about is self-care. And this is because, like these energizers here, it keeps us motivated. It keeps us building up that buffer to the stressors that we might experience. And I like to look at self-care in two different ways. A lot of us, when I say self-care, we might think, oh, that's easy, I'll just go and have a spa. But in lockdown, have we been able to book those? So this is what I'd like you to think about. Usually when we're feeling off balance, we are either very anxious or we're apathetic. And the ideal is to try and get back up to feeling in balance again. So simply, number one, recognize when you're enjoying something. Just recognize it. Recognize, I love having that walk. I love having that run. Recognize what makes you smile. Number two, decide whether this energizes you or relaxes you. And number three, apply it appropriately. So when you need to feel a little bit more motivated, pick from your list of energizers. When you are already quite up there and overwhelmed, pick from your list of relaxers. So those are some of the tools that you can use. You don't have to use all of them. You can tweak them to suit you. But either way, if you're trying something new, one of the key things you will recognize is that at least you'll have shifted the outcome. And that's one of the most important things that we can learn, is that not only could we change our possible outcomes, but we ourselves are in control of them. And the key point about resilience is people seeing threats as a challenge rather than a crisis. Try those and you'll know that you can meet that challenge. Thank you so much for your time, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be here, and very much like the other speakers, I'm here to network during the next session.
Thank you so much, Audrey. Thank you. That was great. Very entertaining and different. We've talked a lot about